the education wing of the church, I was the chairman of the elders. And during that fundraising and the building process, and I brought with me my handy dandy shovel that we purchased a bunch of new shovels at that point to use at that groundbreaking service, and we painted everything gold. And I took mine back home, and I've used it for remodeling project on 3 different houses. You see it's well worn, but you can see a little bit of gold paint. The video that you just saw was shot in about 2007. The picture is actually from 1984, the groundbreaking of when we expanded onto the old church building. We were working as a board at that point, which included all the deacons, all the elders, and that's the picture. As to me, I hear bantered around a lot of times the advantages of growing up in the church versus not, and coming to commitment with the Lord. I was one that grew up in the church, but went away from the Lord, quite frankly, during college. Condense that story way down. I met Claudia the first of January in '71. At that time, she was tied in with somebody else, and I just, okay. In May, I was trying to get her to go out with me. She agreed to, our first date was on Memorial Day weekend. I proposed to her at the end of July, and we were married Labor Day weekend. and that was 54 years ago. About a month after we got married, she dragged me back into church, a new church that was just getting started, Christ Church of Georgetown. And all of a sudden, the Lord got on my conscience and decided it was time to straighten up. And about that time, we moved to Warsaw, or within the last year, we moved to Warsaw and started over with a new job. I left the aerospace industry and went in the environmental business and working for a little lab here in town. I became an elder at this church in about 1974, 75, something like that. I would have been like 28 years old. At that point, I was the next younger elder was in his middle 50s, and all the rest of them were in their 70s and 80s, the old guys. There's a picture that's floating around the church building somewhere about showing these old elders down in front of the church, and with this young guy standing in the middle that had hair. That's me. But a couple of those guys in particular were my mentors. They helped me a great deal in learning to separate what's the Lord's money and what's mine. We were living a high hand-to-mouth lifestyle in the late 70s. Big mortgage, 2 little kids, and on Thanksgiving week of 1977, I lost my job. They forced me to move to Boston, where there weren't any Christian churches in the Jewish community where my employer was. And it came down, push to shove, move to Boston or you're no longer working here. I chose the no longer working here, thinking that they still owed me like $23,000 in commissions. I didn't realize at the moment that stepping away from the job meant stepping away from the commissions too. So all of a sudden, we don't have any money for groceries or anything. And that's when it really hit me hard about setting aside for the Lord, and then dealing with living a lifestyle that was matched up with the income that I had after we take the Lord's work out. During December, it was a tight month. People from the church handed us money on Sunday mornings. Groceries showed up outside. And it was an amazing thing that when we need to go buy, we need groceries. Stuff would show up at the front door. It was just godsend from the people in this church. It was amazing. Christmas Eve morning. Now, I'm one that thinks that God talks to us all the time, but we have to pay attention. But it was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and like a big voice in the room, and he was standing right over there at the foot of the bed, or at least that's where the sound was coming. He says, "David, you just need to start your own business." And I looked around, I said, where did that come from? And then I realized, whoa, he just talked to me. And I'm laying there just, whoa. Later that night, we're in the car. We're on US 30 east of New Haven, headed to Van Wert for Christmas for my parents. When I told Claudia what I heard, and her reaction, she turned around and grabbed a hold of the dash and the seat, says, "You're crazy. We're flat busted. You can't do that." Well, that was on a Saturday night. Mind you, the following Tuesday, three days later, I get a call from an old friend in Detroit about a project that was going on at the Crane Naval Weapons Support Center. They needed an engineer. Later that same week, I'm sitting at Howard Johnson's down in Kokomo talking to the president of the construction company that was going to build this plant for the Crane Naval Weapons Support Center. That was my first job. That same week, I got a call about another job that was going over in Ohio with a major automobile manufacturer of a new plant. Didn't know who it was. A month later, we found out I was the chief engineer for a wastewater treatment system for the Honda Motor Company at the motorcycle plant over at Marysville, Ohio. That was the first job. But we learned at that point, when groceries were showing up, we took our 10% out. Well, that 10% would have been for those groceries, and that went back on the plate on Sunday morning. And from that point on, we've always done it. Whatever amount of money we had, the Uncle Sam gets his cut, and the church gets his cut, and what's left is what we manage our money on. Now, there are times when that's easy, there are times when that's really hard. I understand when people say they have a hard time doing that. I said, but part of it is how you budget your own money. I first learned from Jay Link, which was long before the Dave Ramsey stuff. It's like 3 generations before Dave Ramsey, doing the very same thing. Having an emergency fund, get out of debt as quick as you can, and just live on what's after the Lord has his share. That's the strongest thing I can say. Now, to the old man looking back at things. One Bible verse in Isaiah 1:17 says, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of fatherless, and plead the case of the widow." What does that say to the church? One of my best stories is a guy that came to church that was really searching, had a problem with the bottle. On multiple occasions, I got a call in the middle of the night, and I went up and sat with him in the apartment upstairs in his house. He's sick as a dog, drunk as a skunk. But the Lord is working. He's wrestling with the Lord. I had the honor of baptizing him 6 months later. And I'll tell the story. The old baptistry in the old church, the backside of the steps, there was a notch in the backside of the fiberglass. There, when Ray's, I'm a little guy compared to Ray. When I went down and back, a tidal wave ran over the backside, ran downstairs and hit on the top of the furnace, which is January. It goes, and all that old dirt, it made a smell. And we're up there, can't hardly contain ourselves laughing because the splash going on below our feet. And this wretched smell, and Ray says, "That's those sins getting washed away." Now, there's a story. And then, many years later, I had the honor of sitting with Ray 2 days before he passed, holding his hand and praying with him. And he passed it. I don't remember. He may have been 60. Wasn't any older than that. But I remember him so well. Another good stories I remember is teaching junior high Sunday school class in that little room above in the front of the church up on the right. And in that Sunday school class, in their current names, Cindy Williams and her kids and grandkids back here, Cindy Thomas and her boys here once in a while from Fort Wayne, Larry Hankins and his family, Roger Rapsavage, Sandy Lancaster and her family, Laura Casper and her family. These were all kids that were in my junior high Sunday school class, and later on when we were high school youth sponsors, they were all kids in that group. And there's a number of other kids in the community that I still have a little bit of contact with. It was amazing being able to serve the Lord in that capacity and to see what He's done in other people. It was the good Lord's impact, not mine. I just happened to be there alongside. Another story was one of the guys who ran my microbiology lab back in the 80s. He was a go-getter. He developed the micro lab. I had some microbiology in college, but Brennan was good. But I also, after about 5 years, I knew Brennan was on to bigger and better things. He left me and went to work for a company out of Sweden. He was a salesman for microbiology lab equipment for hospitals and large medical laboratories. He's now retired, lives on a big farm east of Fort Worth, Texas. Aaron was there a couple months ago. Brennan said with tears in his eyes, he says, I can't say enough for the witness and the training that your dad gave me back in the 80s about running a business with Christian principles. Be honest as the day is long. And he's lived his life and his career. He ended up retiring as national sales manager for the firm he went to work for when he left us. Very successful. He's active in his church now. Wow, that's incredible. I wasn't going to say this, but I also was going to say I prayed for my kids. All total of 5 of them. All are now baptized believers, every one of them. Now, it took a long time to get there. And one of them took a real long time. But I just praise God that that's the case. And in fact, almost all of the grandchildren are all baptized believers. I'm still praying for a couple of them. They've got some while to go. But as for thinking about how God is able, God is able beyond our measure. You just cannot outgive God. The more I've been able to give to Him,
the more he's given to me, the more I can give back to him. It's really true. I know part of you aren't going to believe that, but I tell you what, I can testify to it, and I hear other people talk about it too. You just cannot outgive God. Solomon, he was a king. He was also a thinker. He said, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. And that is so true. Now, you saw my shovel in the video that dug dirt from 84 and 2007. It's also done 2 projects for Lakeland Christian Academy, and it's built 5 houses for me. I'm done building houses. It's well worn, but I'm going to use that shovel when we dig outside here. Just reach down to the bottom of your pocket and give what you think the Lord would have you to give. And I tell you what, you'll be able to make what you have left go farther than what you ever had any idea. God bless you guys.